Welcome back to Columbus Brick by Brick, where we uncover the people, projects, and ideas shaping Columbus, one story at a time. I'm your host, Jon Styer, broker and owner of Styer Hospitality Co., where we help investors maximize cash flow through short and midterm furnished rentals while serving guests across Columbus with high-quality stays. Each week, we sit down with local leaders, business owners, and industry voices to break down what's really happening in real estate, business, and entrepreneurship right here in our city. Today's conversation tackles a question that's been floating around the industry, but we're going deeper than the surface level answer. Will AI replace real estate agents? I'm joined by Jim Ross, a local real estate agent with Red One Realty, who's been thinking critically about how fast AI is evolving and what actually means for agents on the ground. We've all heard the line that AI won't replace agents, but agents who use AI will replace those who don't. But Jim's starting to challenge that idea. And today, we're unpacking whether the industry might be underestimating just how much is about to change. We're going to get into what history teaches us about major tech shifts, what agents have traditionally gatekept that AI is now unlocking, and which parts of the job may be getting commoditized faster than people expect. We'll also talk about where agents may be overestimating their value, and on the flip side, what parts of the role are still truly defensible, like trust, negotiation, and real human judgment. And we'll bring it back home to Columbus, asking whether local expertise still provides a real advantage in a relationship-driven market, or if AI is starting to chip away at that too. But most importantly, we're going to break down what agents should be doing right now to stay relevant over the next 3 to 5 years, and what might surprise all of us as this continues to evolve. So if you're in real estate, if you're building a business, or just trying to understand where AI is taking industries like ours, this is a conversation you're going to want to lean into. So let's get into it. Well, Jim, thank you so much for joining us here on the podcast. I am really excited about this conversation. Before we jump in, though, for those of us who may not know you or haven't tuned in before, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got here, and who you are today.
Sure. Well, thank you again for having me. I'm excited to be here as well. So I got licensed back in 2015, and I was in the corporate world before that. While in the corporate world, I realized that I was building someone else's company. I've always had that entrepreneurial spirit. I always wanted to get into real estate investing. And ultimately that drove me to want to be my own boss, create something that was my own instead of helping to build somebody else's business. That led me to real estate. And initially I wanted to get into real estate to be an investor. I wasn't planning on being a traditional agent. I had some experience and knowledge on how investors acquire properties, evaluate properties, renovate them, come up with budgets and scopes of work, and ultimately sell them on the back end. So I knew that process really well, so I figured, I could go do that too. And I got my license because I wanted to have access to the MLS. I wanted to start to build a network, start to build credibility as an agent as well, but my intention was to be an investor. And as I got into the real estate world, when I first got licensed, I figured I might as well try the traditional route as well, because why not? I can learn the process of how to actually go through a transaction. I can start to build my network, start to meet lenders, title companies, contractors. So if I'm acting in the traditional agent capacity, that's going to feed my investor business. Well, it turned out I actually liked being an agent and had a knack for it. I love working with people and I love strategy, and I didn't know that I loved the art of negotiation, but I found out that I liked that and was good at that as well. So ultimately I kind of pivoted and gave up on becoming an investor and building that business, and I ended up becoming a traditional agent, but very quickly started to work towards creating a micro niche where I wanted to work with investors because I knew how their business works. Yeah. So how do I start to fit into their business as an agent rather than being in that investor seat? So that's what I worked on very early in my career. The other goal behind that was I didn't want to get into real estate to create a new job for myself. I didn't want to create something that revolved around buyers, which was nights and weekends. I wanted to start a family. I wanted to have flexibility, and I wanted to try to keep somewhat normal working hours. So by working with investors, I can now work around their schedules, which is typically 9 to 5 and not really weekends. I could be listing focused, which generates buyer leads, and I could go after clients that are doing repeat business.
Yep.
So my whole goal was how can I find a core group of investors or flippers that are just constantly feeding me inventory and build a business around that. And that's what I did early on in my career. In May, I will have been licensed for 11 years. And Thank you. Most of my career has been working with investor clients, and it's been good.
Yeah. You're speaking my language. I like working with investors for the same reason, and I got licensed for the same reason as well, and fell in love with sales also. So that's interesting to hear, and I appreciate you sharing it. And I think that for those of you who don't know you, it's important to share that you are a high volume, top producing agent here in Columbus and have been around the block and probably seen most of it. So just to give a little context to the conversation.
For better or for worse. So I am very transaction heavy. I wish that my dollar volume was not based on so many transactions, but based on a higher average price point. So working with investors, I do a lot of as-is properties as well, and in addition to the flips. So you take the good with the bad. So my average price point's a little bit lower. So I have to do a lot more transactions to keep up with some of the heavy hitters in Central Ohio. But it's just a consistent flow of business, and that's the part that I love about it.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
We have a little bit of a different structure for this conversation than we normally have on this podcast, which I am super excited about. And it was your idea, so I want to thank you for bringing that to the forefront. We are talking today about, will AI replace real estate agents or maybe not? And I'm really excited to have this conversation because this is, I think, on the forefront of a lot of people's mind, especially real estate agents.
Yeah.
So we've structured a conversation around that topic, and I am so excited to get into your thoughts and where you see our market going in the near and the far future. And so I'm ready to dig in and start with the conversation, and I'll start with a question proposed to you. So what made you start questioning the usual line that AI won't replace agents, but agents who use AI will replace those who don't?
Yes. And I actually want your insight too, from a broker's perspective, and everybody that I talk to right now, I'm trying to just gain their feedback of where is our industry going, not where's the market going, where's our actual industry going, and what role will we play in the future with AI getting better and better each day. So yes, the phrase that we throw around in the industry right now is that AI is not going to replace agents. It's agents that use AI will replace those that don't.
Right.
And we hear that all the time. And I think there is a lot of truth to that, but there's also some, I would say, incorrect assumptions that are also associated with that phrase. So what we're saying is as the technology becomes better and better, we're saying that that's just going to be another tool in our tool belt, and that our role is not going to fundamentally change. That's where I think that phrase is flawed, and that actually is kind of, as I hear that more and more, that's kind of what triggered my interest in exploring that idea more of how will it really impact our industry? Because I don't think it's going to make agents go away, but I think that it will fundamentally change our role in a real estate transaction.
Do you think there'll be less agents than there are currently?
Unfortunately, yes.
Do you think that is an unfortunate thing?
Well, I guess depends on how you look at it. No, I think it's good for the industry that we will see a lot of compression. We will see a squeeze on the middle on the average agent. So those that are, unfortunately, it'll impact part-timers the most, or those that are just doing low volume. Maybe it's not their full-time profession. That it's easy to kind of cut those that level out right away. And then you have the average agent, and that's where I think you see the biggest risk, the biggest exposure, because they are operating in a very information heavy, very process heavy role as an agent, not as an advisor. They're not in that advisory role, which is where you see the top producers operating.
Right. What is your value?
Yes. And so what your value is right now as an average agent, that's what has the most exposure as AI gets better and better and better. And to think about how if we are assuming that our role stays the same and AI is just a tool to help us do it better, that's where I think we're going to get caught up in making some assumptions that are going to bite us down the road. Because as new technology comes in and disrupts an industry,
you don't even know what it's going to look like.
But it rarely does what we think it's going to do. It's not going to give us new tools to use within the same role. It's going to fundamentally change our role, and
completely.
And that's where I think agents need to start preparing now, because the technology is advancing so fast that we think, oh, that's probably a 10-year problem. And if you would have asked me a year ago, I probably would have said, yeah, there's probably going to be a lot of disruption in 10 years. And if you asked me 6 months ago, I probably would have said, yeah, there's probably going to be a lot of disruption in 5 years. And if you asked me 3 months ago, I'd probably say, ooh, maybe we're looking at 3 years.
Yeah.
You ask me today, I think that within the next couple of years, we will see some major disruption that we'll start to see some of those fundamental changes.
Yeah. I agree completely. So I'm not going to sit here and tout myself as an AI expert, but I follow the news. I follow AI information on social media, and I see some interesting stuff. And I think that we're right now, we're starting to see a rollout of AI agents. And I don't mean real estate agents.
Yeah.
I mean a partner or an employee almost of an individual or a business that can work 24/7, and the cost is API credits. And what does that cost in relation to the output that you're going to get from an employee? And I think that is a really important piece of what really the near future for everyone is going to look like, and who can adapt in a timely manner, and who's going to be left behind or be replaced because they haven't taken that next step in building those relationships with AI agents, with training them, with developing them, and allowing them to work in the background, or maybe sooner than later in the foreground. That having those AI agents work for you as a business owner, and by that I mean a real estate agent, is quickly going to become the difference, because the leverage that you're going to get is going to be unmatched.
Correct. Yeah, the advent or the introduction of some very recent technology where you are able to build out these autonomous agents. Yeah, again, not real estate agents, but actual employees that are AI agents working on your behalf. The technology, this started to come out in November-ish of 25, where you can pull this software onto your computer, start to train these agents, and then they can go act on your behalf, like you said, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, very cheap. They don't call in sick. They don't have time off. They don't have vacation. They don't get tired. And you can train them on how to replicate processes that you're operating every single day. And that's where the administrative work, repetitive tasks, those are at risk for sure. Completely.
And so then the question that stems from that is I want to start by saying, what do you think what do you think most agents are underestimating right now when it comes to AI? And then additionally, what are some skills that agents have now today that probably won't be replaced by AI in the near future?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say, what are the things that are most at risk right now, and then what are the things that are not quite there yet from an AI replacement perspective? The things that are most at risk right now are anything, and this is where I think agents underestimate it too, on how powerful it's going to be sooner than they think. Already today, its capabilities are a lot further along than where we're actually utilizing it. So we're not even utilizing it to its full capacity yet. But anything that is information-based
Mm-hmm.
and anything that is process-based, anything you can do on a computer, that is what's at risk. Because anything that is a repeatable process, that can be automated by AI. And there are, I also like to look, starting to look at like the history of these revolutions, and where I think, and I'd love to talk to you about that too, but how does history of technology advance society further, and how is this AI revolution a little bit different than that? That's something that I'd love to touch on. But so what's at risk is anything that is on a computer that you are doing repetitively.
Mm-hmm.
And anything that is process-based, like understanding a purchase contract,
Mm-hmm.
navigating the home sale process, anything that is cognitive can be replaced on a computer by AI. And we also, agents underestimate, oh, well, who's going to be, you hear the argument, who's going to show them the house and point out the crack in the foundation? I think that's actually something that's easily solved. Like anything in the physical world,
Right.
That's where we think we have what we call these moats. So when you look at AI disruption, you hear this term moat.
Mm-hmm.
What is your moat? What can you defend in your industry that AI can't take this away? And you'll hear agents say, well, the physicality piece of it, they can't do that. Well, there are websites. There's a website called rentahuman.ai, and it's a gig website where an AI bot can use an API to go hire somebody to go do something.
Mm-hmm.
And I think of that as, say that you're a top producing agent and you're starting to build a team. One of the first things that a team leader does, that top producing agent, is they're going to hire a showing agent.
Yep.
They're going to hire a junior agent that's going to go do all of their showings for them, all of their walkthroughs, so that they can focus on the higher per dollar activities.
Mm-hmm.
So an AI could do that same thing. They can go to rentahuman.ai, hire an agent as a gig worker, somebody that's licensed that can access the property to walk that buyer through, point out the crack in the foundation, and then their gig ends there. And then the AI takes everything back over. So the physical part, I think, is at risk. The computer part is at risk. That is where agents that rely on those pieces of their role. So information gatekeeping is another one. Like agents have always been the source of information.
The holders of the data.
The holders. So, and you see, there's been all these things through the history of real estate that, that's going to disrupt the industry. That's going to kill the profession. So you have the MLS used to be on paper.
Yep. The books.
I was never in it at that time.
Me neither. I never saw the books, but
you have the MLS listings are on paper, and then the internet starts coming out in the mid 90s, and they say, oh, well, real estate agents aren't needed anymore. If a consumer can just find the listing online, real estate agents are going away.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that didn't happen.
Right.
So then the next part of it is, now some of these online platforms are going to replace the MLS, Zillow, Redfin.
Right.
Now a consumer gets access to all of the listings that the MLS used to have, and they can see data analytics. Well, guess what? Real estate agents are still here.
Mm-hmm.
And so it goes back to, well, what is the agent, where's the value that they're adding? And it comes through they're advocating for that client. They are guiding them through a process. They still have that advisory role. So, but AI does a really good job of punishing gatekeepers,
yes,
and rewarding advisors. There's another word that you'll hear thrown around a lot is friction. So what AI is really good at doing is removing or reducing friction. And in the past, the agent was the one that was reducing that friction. So when you think about a real estate transaction, where does an agent add value? They have access to information. They are experts in guiding you through a complicated process, and they are advisors that can help you with high stakes decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So of those three things, I think that two of them are at high risk with technological advances in AI. Information is going to be widely available,
yes,
and widely analyzed, and somebody could use an AI tool to help them analyze the market, help analyze the value of their property. That information that we gatekeep is going to go away.
Yeah.
The next part is navigating a complicated process, contracts, coordinating lenders, title companies, insurance companies. That can all easily be replicated as well because it's just a repetitive process. So the one that's left, the moat that we need to build as agents, is that advisory role. And that's all built on trust.
And I would argue that that's always been the most important role of a real estate agent.
Yep.
And I don't see that continuing. For me, the way that I view this relationship, and I would imagine most would agree, is that this is a relationship business. And that will, at least for the near future, I imagine, be difficult for AI to replace.
Correct.
I don't see AI coming in and sitting down and shaking your hand and saying, "Hey, Jim, nice to meet you. I'd love to be able to help you and advise you in this huge transaction part of your life."
Yep.
And so that, I agree, is something that we as agents and going forward business owners will want to not only continue to work on and improve, but build a moat around.
Yeah, I think the other aspect of it is that fiduciary duty.
Yes.
And so then if you think about if there's an AI software that is trying to replace that aspect of it, then what you lose is the accountability. The consumer likes to have an advisor that is held accountable. Mm-hmm. So if an AI makes a recommendation on a list price or a contract structure or a negotiation strategy and they get it wrong, who's to blame?
Yeah.
It's so
the consumer.
The consumer likes to have that person in place where there's someone accountable that knows what they're doing and offers that high level of expertise to guide them through that process and advise them on strategy and decisions. And that's where that trust factor becomes more and more important. And AI in that sense will end up becoming a decision support tool, not a decision maker.
Yes.
So we maintain that authority to be able to, we'll use AI to help us, help them, but we will still be the ones ultimately that are accountable.
And a lot of agents already are doing that. And to your point, anyone that's used AI enough has seen it hallucinate and create information, create data that just isn't actual, isn't factual, isn't real. And that will, I imagine, diminish over time, but I don't know when we'll get to a point where it's absolutely not happening, and will we ever?
Yeah.
So these are huge decisions. You need someone who knows, who's been there, done that, who knows the ins and the outs to be that advisor, that knowledge base for you. I wouldn't trust AI anywhere near yet to make every top-down decision for me in my life.
I agree, and that's why I think that when we go back to that phrase of AI is not going to replace agents, but those that use it will replace those who don't, it really goes back to understanding how our role will fundamentally change, because it will, because there are all these aspects of our profession that are at risk and will be automated and will be performed better than a human. It'll be performed better by AI. So now we have to focus on that moat that we can build that still creates value for the consumer, and we use it. That's where we use AI as tools to help us run that part of the business that is still valuable to the consumer.
Right.
Yeah.
And I imagine that the agents who are successfully using AI will have agents, and they'll be agents that they trained and they built to operate their business in a way that they want it to. So there is still some unique aspect to choosing an agent, and it might just be what kind of agent do they have. So that I find interesting. I want to pivot a little bit because you mentioned technological revolutions.
Yeah.
And you did some research into that. That really sparked my interest and perked my ears up. How do you feel that relates to real estate in this conversation?
Yeah, I like to think back to how we've seen these things happen in the past and what is the impact. And ultimately, when you see these big technological revolutions, they are still pushing society forward. But there have been many cases in the past where there have been huge disruptions that have displaced workers, but as a society, we end up being in a better place because new and better and higher paying jobs are created. And so then I started to look at, okay, what were some of those examples, and then how might this upcoming AI revolution be a little bit different. So if you look at something like the agricultural revolution, where most of Americans at one point were farm workers, and because we had to produce so much food, then machines come along that allow us to be way more productive, and now all of a sudden all those farm workers are displaced. Well, what did they do? They started to retrain, and they got jobs within industry on assembly lines or whatever it is. And then that slowly built towards the industrial revolution. And now a lot of this manual labor that we had was replaced by machines again. So we're again replacing muscle in both of those. Agriculture, we're replacing labor, muscle labor. Industrial, we're replacing muscle labor. So what did those people that were displaced do? They retrained, and then they got service jobs or office jobs that were higher paying. And now we are in an AI revolution. And the way I like to think of it is kind of like an escalator. The escalator is going up, but maybe with these these technology revolutions, we take a couple of steps back, but the escalator is still going up.
Yeah.
But now we take a couple steps back as we retool and figure out how are these displaced workers going to retrain and what are they going to do next. What I see with AI is interesting because we're on that escalator. We're going to take a couple steps back as people get displaced and industries change. But then I think about, okay, so now what are those people going to do? They're going to try to retrain, and they're probably going to be in some sort of white-collar job. The problem is AI is coming after that job too.
Right, exactly.
So that retrain and do something for more money, that I think is going to be different this time around.
Diminishing returns.
Yeah, because AI is coming after everything. That is white-collar. So the difference here is that those past revolutions were manual labor, muscle revolutions that we were replacing. Now we're replacing cognitive function. So as AI gets better and better at being a thinking brain, that's where those white collar jobs are at risk. It was always like the blue collar was at risk. And that's a whole nother conversation about humanoid robots and where that's going to go. And they are probably at risk too. They probably have a little bit more runway, but there is risk there. But right now it's more of the white collar, that office, anything software driven is at risk right now. So it just it's interesting to think about and kind of go through that thought experiment of, okay, so now what do I need to do to prepare myself? What skills do I need?
What's the retraining for this revolution?
Yes. So if I put that in the real estate framing, what do we need to be training or retraining ourselves on? It goes back to, how do I establish the highest level of trust with the consumer? So that goes to negotiation. It goes to, how do I help them understand a complex process? How do I act as that advisory role? So we have to be advisors. So kind of like you see, stockbrokers. What happened to stockbrokers as platforms like Robinhood came out? Stockbrokers maybe transitioned more into being a financial planner or a financial advisor. That's kind of where I see real estate potentially heading as well, is we become the advisor, which I actually like. That's the most fun part. The day-to-day administrative stuff, that's it's great, but you're not the value is added in that advice and how you help a buyer or seller structure a deal. And that's what we need to continue to get better and better at.
It's the real driver of success for the client.
Yeah.
And for me, at least, and I would imagine from what I'm hearing for you, is the most fulfilling part of the job. I mean, you can do administrative work in any industry. This is a unique industry in which we get to help people make these large decisions and ideally make people very happy as part of it. So for me, that's the part that I enjoy the most, and that I don't see going away anytime soon.
Yeah.
You mentioned before gatekeeping and how agents traditionally have been gatekeepers of data. How do you see AI starting to unlock those gates?
Yeah, I think it's just that they will have access to all of the data. So they are going to be able to analyze comps better than we are. They're going to be better neighborhood experts from a data perspective, where agents can still take advantage. I have to say agents or real estate agents, where real estate agents can still have an advantage is local market knowledge that goes beyond the data. So AI is going to be good at taking data, analyzing it, breaking it down, figuring out how we use it. The agent is going to be better at utilizing very specific things that you can't see from a data set. It's from actually being in the field, learning how a community works and understanding it is where they still have an advantage. But it will be a matter of AI being way better at us at analyzing market data, understanding where the market is going to go, understanding how we need to position a property for sale, understanding how we need to attack a negotiation from a buyer standpoint, because that buyer will have a better understanding of what that property they're interested in, what does that local market look like, and what leverage does that give me or not give me based on what that seller is expecting and what the market is telling us they're going to get. So I think that's where the information that we once owned is just going to be.
And I think we've been trending in that direction even before AI. With things like Zillow and Zestimate, and we can have our opinions on that, but that is the first step in what we're kind of talking about here. So that leads me to ask you your opinion on what do you think gets commoditized first with AI with regards to real estate agents?
Yeah, I think anything that is process or information based. So I see that there would be a lot of risk for transaction coordination, listing coordination, things that a role that an agent typically is doing. Like usually, I would prefer to have a licensed transaction coordinator or a licensed listing coordinator. So somebody that is taking in information, running a process to prepare a listing for the market, or they are taking a new contract, opening the escrow with title, like working through that process. I think that is probably what goes away first. And then along with market analysis, comp analysis. So with Zillow and their iBuyer program, and they were using that Zestimate to try to they were using it as a valuation tool.
Right.
But that was algorithm based. With AI, we're not talking about algorithms anymore. We're talking about a thinking machine that is able to replicate how a human would have looked at those comparables. And they're going to come up with a different answer than an algorithm would. So I think they'll get better at that than a human will, because they just will have such a deeper understanding of the overall market.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think that's already happening.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of when, not how or if. And so putting yourself in the idea that, hey, this is happening, it's already happening, let me prepare now, is the way to build yourself up for success in the future.
Yep.
And working towards what is your value proposition. And that's something that when I work with new agents, one of the first things that we always talk about is, hey, what is your value as an agent? And what is your value, your unique value, based on who you are as an agent? All right, quick pause in the conversation. I want to highlight something that fits right into this real estate world that we're always talking about. Styer Hospitality Co. brings together a full-service furnished rental management company and a real estate brokerage under one roof. So owners, investors, and agents get reliable support from people who know the industry. Everything we do is built on real systems, trained staff, and the same level of oversight that I expect in my brokerage office. That gives owners a consistent process, steady communication, and a guest experience that feels intentional instead of reactive. If you own a property and feel like it could be performing better as a shorter midterm rental, or you're spending too much time handling guests and unit turnovers, that is exactly where we can step in. We manage the entire operation so the property supports your goals rather than adding more stress to your week. And for the agents listening, we are a resource that you can plug directly into your business. If you have clients trying to keep their low interest rate on their current home while moving up, we can model the numbers and outline the strategy and run the property if they choose to convert it into a furnished rental. And if you have clients who need temporary housing during a transition, we can help place them quickly and keep the process smooth for everyone involved. If you want to see what your property could do in the short or midterm space, or you want a management partner you can rely on, head to StyerHospitalityCo.com, or you can reach out to me directly through the site, and we can talk through your goals, run projections, and build a clear plan. Now let's get back to the conversation. Is there anything that you think agents overestimate how defensible their value is today? And do you see that changing at all with AI?
Yeah, I think they overestimate the power of the data analytics.
Mm-hmm.
I think they think that, nobody could, or an AI couldn't help them navigate a complicated process. An AI couldn't help them position the correct pricing for this property. I think that we'll see that kind of automation and implementation in the next 12 months. I mean, with some of the things you can build right now, it's happening right now. And what's interesting about what we were talking about earlier, some of these agents that you can build, is that it no longer requires an engineering degree or you don't have to be a software vibe coding.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a software developer anymore. You can take an idea, like someone like me who has no coding experience whatsoever. I could explain in plain English, hey, here's a process that I'm looking to automate and a dashboard that I'm looking to build or a tool that I'm looking to build. And you can work with an AI coding platform and it will tell you, here's exactly how you need to code it. And a tool that may have cost $50,000, $100,000, which would never get off the ground otherwise, is now able to be coded by a layperson that doesn't know what they're doing, but they are an expert in their field. So what they can do is articulate to an AI, here's what it needs to do. I just don't know how to build it. And the AI does.
Yeah.
And so you also, when you're working with a software developer, so say that you're a software developer and I'm an expert real estate agent, and now you're developing a tool for me, but I have to almost make you an expert as well for you to understand how to actually build that tool. Well, now we've removed that friction. I don't need that software developer necessarily anymore, and I don't have to train you on how to be an expert in my role so that you now know how to build that tool. I'm telling the AI directly, here's exactly how it works and what you need to build, and then it codes it for you. So I think website development, software development, agents will start to be able to do that on their own. Very
processes, I think.
Yeah, you could. So Elon Musk, he kind of hinted at how AI will learn a lot of these repeatable tasks, and he essentially said that AI will just watch your computer screen all day, every day. They'll see exactly what you do and how you do it, and then they'll be able to replicate it. So you can almost do that on your own right now and build your own tools. Yep. So that's where I think there's a huge opportunity right now in helping to build some of these automations. So now you can focus more on the things that are going to build that moat. How do you build that trust? You build trust through credibility and authority, and you have to build your personal brand. I think that's where I think the most important thing for agents is personal brand in the next 3 to 5 years, because you're going to have to separate yourself and show that you are that trustworthy, credible authority figure in the space, and that's what's going to allow you to just maintain as a top producer.
So speaking of trust, how much do you trust AI to work on your behalf right now, and when do you see that shifting, and what does that look like for you? Like, how are you going to build that trust with maybe an AI agent that you've built? That is an interesting piece of it, because we do have a fiduciary duty to our clients.
Yep.
And if we're hiring AI agents or building AI agents and we're worried about hallucination and all the crazy stuff that AI can do, when do we flip that switch?
Yeah.
And how do we take our foot off the gas or hand off the wheel and let the AI drive? That for me is a scary, like, letting go. And have you thought about that?
Yes, and I agree. It's tough to just kind of let it run wild, even if you've tested it and you've back tested it, and you can you put it in a sandbox and you give it fake data and say, what would you have done in this? And it's like, okay, it all works really well. I still personally am not there yet where I would just say, okay, go do your thing.
Yeah.
So any tool that I use or any tool that I would build, it would have this idea of human in the loop. So you would allow an agent to go work for hours and hours on end, but ultimately there are steps in the process where the agent, the real estate agent, the human, has to be inserted again and make sure that everything is correct. So we will still be that double check, making sure that the output is correct. The inputs are good, the outputs are good. We sign off on it, and then we let it continue on with the automation.
Yeah, I agree completely, and it'll be interesting to see that diminish over time.
Yeah.
Or will it? I mean, I think that eventually it will, as the
Yeah.
AI gets trained better and better. It's got more data and more experience, to the point where most of the work is happening in the background, but the relationship, the advisory role, that is going to be very difficult to replace with AI.
Yeah. I think of it as informational is going to go away.
Mm-hmm.
AI is going to take that. Relational is not.
Yes.
That's what we need to work on.
Yeah.
So that it just goes back to personal brand. So that's what you have to work on. The other thing that's interesting is all this AI technology that comes out and how agents use it in marketing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's going to be another big explosion of activity for agents. And the interesting thing about AI is that it is an amplifier. So whatever you're doing, it can amplify it.
Mm-hmm.
And if agents use it the right way, they can use it to scale their business, scale their marketing. One agent can do the job, it can have the productivity of a small team.
Right.
It's actually interesting, these bots that people can build on their own computers. Industry experts, like owners of some of these big AI companies, are saying that is going to create the path to allow for the first billion-dollar one-person company.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited to see that, where one person has an idea and they can take it from start to finish, where it's now has $1 billion in revenue, and they are the only human employee because they have all these AI employees along with them. So
that is wild.
I think that will translate to real estate as well. And there is that human in the loop though. But back to the marketing thing, you see all of these AI videos that come out. You have talking head avatars. You have full synthetic podcasts. Are we even talking right now? I don't know.
Am I a real guy?
This could be AI. So you could synthesize a full podcast with
Sure.
two people talking, and it looks pretty good. And this is the worst it's ever going to be. It's only going to get better.
I've had people comment on videos of this podcast
Say,
saying it's AI.
Exactly.
And I'm like, what are you talking? I'm living this.
Yeah. So where agents have to be careful is how they use AI in their marketing, because one very interesting thing that I think we're going to encounter sooner than later is what I'd refer to as a trust recession. So with the consumer, as you put out all of this AI content, as content becomes infinite, trust becomes scarce.
Yes.
Because now people say, oh, is that AI? Do I trust this? Is that a real person? It's going to get worse and worse. So that's where it goes back to that trust. You have to work on building trust. So for me personally, I'm really getting into the idea of an AI avatar that's me. It's an AI version of me that can help with my online exposure and presence and things like that. But when I think through that, you have to make sure that you're using it appropriately, because otherwise it will backfire on you. So where I think using an AI version of Jim that's up there, that's talking to an audience online, is when you are doing something educational. So how does a home inspection process work? How does the contract to close work? When you're teaching something like that, I think it's okay.
Yeah.
When you are giving a market update, something that's informational, I think it's okay. But where I've seen it get used, and I think it's being used inappropriately because it's going to actually hurt their brand, is storytelling, is perspective. When somebody's giving an opinion, if I'm giving you my opinion, that needs to be me doing that video, not my AI avatar, because it's going to lower my credibility. It's going to lower my trust. So it will be interesting to see how, as AI content becomes more and more prevalent, how agents use it or misuse it to hurt or help their brand.
Yeah, I love that. And what an interesting nuance to highlight, because I can see someone having a new shiny toy, right? Their AI avatar, and this can do everything for me. Well, offering that distinction between what is going to help and hurt, and the trust building, or just like you mentioned, the educational piece, could truly, I mean, when you're talking about reputation, it is so hard to build and it is so easy to tear down.
Yeah.
And if you are inserting a kernel of questioning or distrust, the whole thing can come crumbling. So I really like that, and I appreciate that insight.
Yeah, I think that some agents will learn the hard way.
Yeah.
Some will adapt the right way, but I think that like I don't use the AI avatar too much yet because it's not quite there.
It's not there yet.
But I mean, it's right.
It's
I
close.
think within the next year, it's going to be fairly indistinguishable. Not only the video, but voice as well.
Yeah.
So you can clone your voice right now, and it's
Yeah.
pretty good. But a lot of the way that you emote and your cadence, those things are really hard to replicate.
It's kind of like if you know, you know.
Yeah, it's getting there,
Yeah.
but it's not there yet. But I think once it does, I will use it to exponentially increase my online content by doing those educational videos.
Yeah.
But then I'll still be the real human that gives my opinions, my perspective, and lessons learned, those kind of things. What did I learn from a past deal that helped me to improve as an agent and a service provider? What's a day in the life look like for me? That's where you don't want to kill your authenticity by using too much AI, because that's where it has the opposite effect.
Completely. Well, let's talk about Columbus specifically, or a market like Columbus.
Sure.
Do you think that there is still some local expertise protection that we have as agents, or do you see AI chipping away at that as well?
Yeah, I think it will chip away at it for sure. But so I think back to before the MLS existed, you would probably, and this was again before my time, but you would have agents that are area experts. Like they are the go-to in that area. They get all the listings because they live there, they know it, they breathe it. Well, when the MLS came along, that moat kind of went away because you could say, hey, I am an expert in Clintonville. I live, work here. I know everybody here. I know this market backwards and forwards. I'm an expert. I could come along and say, well, I live downtown, but I have access to all the same data you do, and I can become an expert in this neighborhood in 20 minutes. So it kind of that transition happened when the MLS was implemented online. So I think something similar will happen in all markets, but the community expert, that's where you'll still maintain your value.
Yeah.
Because for Clintonville, for example, I don't really know what goes on in the community like you do. From a data perspective, I can do exactly what you can do. But from a community perspective, you've got me beat. And
I'd be
you'd have
hard
an AI
pressed
beat
to
too.
think that, sorry to interrupt you,
Yeah.
that an AI agent is out there in the community going to a community festival and shaking hands or
they're
saying
not.
hello or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think the other interesting thing to think about with disruption for real estate in particular is that we are highly regulated, and I think that's another thing we have. Usually we don't like all the regulation, but from a disruption standpoint, it's actually a good thing.
Yes.
So the regulation will not stop the disruption, but it will slow it down. We have. And it's all meant to protect we have all this regulation to protect the consumer. And so when new technologies come along, it's usually a little bit slower for them to get implemented because there are legal components, regulation components that will slow it down. But if you look at something like Uber, they just went around the traditional frameworks. So I'm interested to see how new AI technology just goes around the current regulation to be able to disrupt it.
yeah.
But overall, I do think that will slow down the major disruption that could or could not be coming.
Well, it is coming.
It is coming.
So let's talk about 3 to 5 years from now.
Yeah.
What does that look like? So there are real estate agents that are going to be listening to this that in 3 to 5 years are not going to be real estate agents. And there's going to be real estate agents that are listening to this that are going to be wildly more successful in 3 to 5 years because of AI. What agents or business models do you think are most at risk in the next 3 to 5 years?
That middle of the road average agent that is not a market expert, that is not a negotiation expert, that is not a process expert, that is where when everyone that is information based goes away. And that all that volume is going to get absorbed by the agents that took the time to make sure they are prepared properly. So where I see the industry going is, like we said earlier, a big compression of how many agents we have. I think we have 1.5 million nationally, maybe.
Approximately.
So if we have
about 10,000 locally in our local market.
So if we have 1.5 million agents nationally, and we're doing around 4.1-ish million sales per year, that's a lot of agents for not a lot of transactions.
Right.
So I think even without AI, we're going to see compression. But now this is just going to accelerate it dramatically. And those average agents that are not putting in the correct effort are going to go away. And so I think we'll have a lot less agents in 3 to 5 years, but the agents that remain are going to absorb that business, be crazy successful, and they're going to have a lot of tools that help them do it at scale, a lot better than they do right now. The one thing I actually like to hear your opinion on it, because I don't know if I have one necessarily or not, but what happens to commissions? And my thought on it is that there will be pressure on them, because
I think that we're already seeing a little bit. And I see a fair amount of transactions, and I know you do as well, me being as a broker, and you having such the volume you do. I think that we are seeing it, and it comes down to, again, what is your value?
Yep.
And can you illustrate your value? If you are an agent who maybe has leveraged AI to the point where you are one of the top agents in your market, and you have all these tools that have built out that help their clients succeed, and you can illustrate that value, I don't see there being a major change there. But if you are unable to illustrate that value or provide that value, then maybe there should be some compression on that compensation. So I agree with you that it depends, but I could see as an average commission being reduced.
I think those that are not able to justify their value are going to unfortunately go away too. And agents that are able to still justify their value, not through, yes, I'm good at my administrative process management, I'm good at strategic advisory, advising you on everything you need to have a successful transaction. That's where those agents that will be able to justify their value might not see much of a change. But I do think that there will be, with these big disruptions, you don't see the compensation structure collapse typically, but you do see it evolve. So we've in real estate, we've had the evolution of the brokerage, where you have discount brokers, flat fee brokers, and that's another thing where as those started to emerge, it was like, oh, well, this is the end of realtors, because it's just going to be like a FSBO basically. I'm just going to pay somebody to, I'm going to put it in the MLS and set it and forget it. And that didn't happen. Yes, they took some market share, but ultimately didn't disrupt. And that's where, you see all these things where it's like, oh, real estate is so resilient. Look at all these things in the past that were major threats to the industry, and they didn't end up having that big of an impact. That we just cannot have that same mentality when we're looking at AI, because those were all information gaps that were being solved, and those are still being, that's where that friction gets removed by AI right now. It's the cognitive part that I'm worried about. So that's why I think it's different. But if you adapt, this is going to be a golden opportunity for the agents that take it seriously, work on the right things, and prepare for the changes that are going to happen.
So let's talk about what that looks like. What should an agent stop relying on right now, and what should they start building?
I would look at, I'm a big fan of analyzing your entire day. And I've worked with coaches in the past that when I'm trying to figure out my business and what I can maybe take off my plate or hire out, they have you go through this exercise of, okay, I want you to document what you do every hour for 2 weeks. And then from there, we will identify, okay, what are the things that are $5 an hour tasks, $20 an hour task, $100 an hour. Everything that's 100 and below, we're going to hire somebody to do that. And now you focus on 100 and above, which is basically prospecting and going on appointments.
Yep.
Everything else, you should have a staff to do that for you. So all that admin work. So I think that But so I've done that process many times, and I did it in the past, just kind of going through the motions, and I wasn't really taking it that seriously, and I didn't really get a lot out of it. But I just did it again. I tracked my time for 3 straight weeks, nights and weekends, down to the minute.
Wow.
Where it was like till 5:02, I did this, and I was very meticulous with how I tracked it, and I then, in the past, didn't have an AI model like ChatGPT to analyze my data. I was kind of going through it and saying, okay, where was I spending my time? Is this on the business, in the business? This time around,
your opinion is going to be biased and flawed.
Yeah, true. But now I took all that data, I threw it into ChatGPT, and I allowed it to analyze my day and help me to structure what are the things that I'm doing that I shouldn't be, and where should I be spending my time.
That's a great practice.
So I think that that exercise is way more valuable right now when you can have an AI model evaluate it for you than it was in the past, at least for me personally. So what I would recommend for every agent is to go through that exercise and document down to the minute what you're doing personally and professionally, and have AI help you understand where you're spending your time. And the time that you are spending on anything that is process related, information related, desktop related, those are the things I would start to think about. Okay, well, what if this was gone tomorrow or next year or in the next 5 years? Let's assume that they are. And if that was my value proposition, what I was providing to a client, I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
So those are the things that I would start to get off your plate to begin with, so that you can focus on how do I build credibility, authority, and trust. And if you go through that exercise, have an AI model, an LLM, help you analyze it, you'll have a much better perspective on how vulnerable your current business is. And then you can start to say, okay, well, if I assume that anything done on a computer is going to be gone, and maybe not even gone, but the consumer is going to assign a lot less value to it.
Yes.
They're going to say, yeah, AI is doing all this, so why would I give you any credit for it? So we have to start to transition our value proposition to that strategic advisor role.
That was great insight. And I have, as someone who coaches and helps agents, given the advice of write down everything you're doing for the week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, even better. But putting the lens of, okay, now plug it into AI is such a level up because of the bias, because everyone's going to make excuses for themselves.
Oh, yeah.
And we all do it. We're human.
Guilty.
Like it's just part of life. Yeah. And, well, you could excuse away this or that. Well, it was a crazy week or whatever. But getting that third-party, truly robotic view of nuts and bolts, brass tacks, it's going to give you that level up that self-analyzation just can't.
Yep.
So I really appreciate that. And I want to say thank you for bringing that to light. And I'm going to do it.
It was powerful
for
me. It was very eye-opening. And I know that if I would have done that in the past without the help of an LLM analyzing it for me, it would not have been nearly as helpful as it was.
Well, that's great. So as we start to wrap up here, I want to revisit this conversation in 3 years. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Let's set a date. What do you think will have surprised our industry the most?
What will surprise us? I don't think that we are accounting for how fast things are advancing. There are leaps that happen every single day with AI tools. And so, for instance, Claude, one of the major LLMs, the last release of Claude was coded 90% by Claude. So it is getting so good at developing and coding that the people that are coding it are using it to code itself.
Yeah.
They're coding its successor. So AI is now coding AI. I think that we will. I'm most interested to see where robotics is going to go, and not necessarily how that disrupts real estate, but just as a society, I'm interested to see where that goes in the next 3 years, because we will eventually, sooner than we think, I think we will have humanoid robots that are producing humanoid robots. We will have AI that is coding AI, and every iteration, it just keeps getting exponentially better, faster. And I don't know what our future society looks like.
It's almost like too far away.
But
just 3 years.
Yeah, but I think a lot of that happens faster than we expect. So, but in real estate, where do I think we are in 3 years? I think that's when the major disruption is really starting to take effect. I think we start to thin the herd a lot with the number of agents that we have, and the number of agents that we do have are going to have tools that will allow them to be exponentially more productive than they are today. So to do the number of transactions, because those transactions are happening with or without me, they're happening.
Yeah.
So the agents that are building the tools now are scaling appropriately, are going to take advantage of that, and we're going to need a lot less agents to do that same number of transactions. So I think that's kind of where we're going, is that the value will be seen in how you advise, not how you run a process. And 3 years will be very telling for that.
It will.
Yeah.
Well, this was awesome.
Sweet.
Thank you for sharing your insight.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed this conversation, and I am interested in where we go with this, and excited, maybe a tinge of nervous, but I think that overall it will be an overall benefit.
I agree.
And we're going to see.
Yep, we have to adapt just like we have in the past, and these big advances have always pushed society forward. So I think this same thing will happen. It will negatively impact a lot of agents that aren't doing the right things right now.
Yep.
So that'd be my advice, is to figure out what is your moat.
Dig in.
Build that moat.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, where can our listeners find you if they want to continue a conversation with you, or learn more, or anything?
I am mostly on Facebook and Instagram, so just Jim Ross on Facebook, and then my Instagram handle is Hey Jim Ross. That's how a lot of people use my full name when they talk to me. It's like, Hey Jim Ross. So, and people will say, Hey Jim Ross. So I have that might be a good Instagram handle. So at Hey Jim Ross is Instagram.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, thank you, Jim Ross.
Yeah, there you go.
For the great conversation.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too, and I'm just scratching the surface too. So I'm curious to see where everything goes.
You know. Yeah. So, well, this was great. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thanks.
That wraps up another episode of Columbus Brick by Brick, where we uncover the people, projects, and ideas shaping the future of our city. A huge thank you to our guests for sharing their insights and contributing to the ongoing story of Columbus. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please be sure to subscribe, leave a comment, and share this episode with someone who'd love learning more about our community. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Columbus Brick by Brick, and visit us anytime at columbusbrickbybrick.com for more episodes and updates. This is Columbus Brick by Brick, where every brick has a story, and we're here to tell it. See you next time.